All right, guys, I am joined with Chris Spears today. Welcome from Orderly Meds. And we are so happy to have you here for our conversation.
Hi, Kaylee. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, Chris Spears is the founder of Orderly Meds. And I know a lot of you guys, who have listened to my episode back in December, or a lot of my clients who listen to this, you guys are using Orderly Meds. So, this is a really fun conversation to get to have with Chris to kind of learn a little bit more about the foundation of Orderly Meds and just his story in general. So, Chris, I would love to open up today's conversation talking a little bit about your backstory, kind of give everyone a little, you know, timeline for your
Okay.
life.
And we won't do the Goonies version. I won't go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, I know,
Um,
that's true.
if I jump to, I had a background in technology. I ran a consulting company that did marketing and technology consulting for 17 years. And then the reason that we ended up starting Orderly Meds was actually a health event. So in
Okay.
October of 2022, I found myself in the ICU. They were cutting all my clothes off. They were telling me that I needed to give them permission to transfuse 4.5 pints of blood before I passed out. And came out the other side of that. I'm okay. But it did lead to a lot of fun conversations with my doctor the next year in 23 that was, Chris, you could stand to lose, 50, 60, 70 pounds. You'd be a lot better off if you did. And at that point in time, my general practitioner wrote me a prescription for Ozempic. And that's the beginning of this journey. So August of 23, I get that prescription. I call my insurance company and get told, nope, you're not eligible. Okay, I'll go check it out at the pharmacy anyway. Go to the pharmacy, I'll pay in cash, whatever. I need to get on this. And that is when the pharmacy said, we haven't had these medications in stock in 6 months. Good luck. You can try back every couple of weeks and see if there's any available for you to fill this prescription. And thankfully, Facebook listens to every conversation you have. So the next day, I'm getting ads from what are now, Orderly Meds competitors. And I signed up with one of those platforms and the medication was, I call it the dark world, right? Like at that point in time, like I'm digging around trying to understand what compounding is. And oh my gosh, you can do telemedicine now for these sophisticated medications. It's not just calling in to get a script for a Tamiflu or a cold or something. Like this is a little bit more serious. So I navigated that, got signed up. The medication worked great, and I didn't like anything about the customer experience.
Mm,
So 20 years in the landscape of marketing and technology was all customer experience work. I complained enough about it that friends and family said, Chris, if you're going to complain about this and it's something you know how to fix, go do something about it. And that is in October of 23. We sat down with a couple of folks and said, let's go build a customer experience that is better. And what I mean by that is we wanted to do all the wraparound services, right? It's really easy to get the meds shipped out. It's much harder to bring mental health to the conversation, to bring a nutritionist, fitness, to build a community, and really try to win on a customer experience that we don't hit every single time. We make plenty of mistakes. We're going through our own growing pains there. But I'm going to continue to beat the drum that like customer experience is that why the business was born. And the further we get into it now it's more of a battle of how do we continue to provide access to these life-changing medications as
yeah,
the access to those slowly get eroded by big pharma and the FDA. And that's kind of
yeah.
the battle that I'm looking forward to this year.
Yes, and I'd love to dive into that a little bit with you here in a moment. But I think that is something that I would say is kind of what drove me to reaching out to once I saw Precision Nutrition was like, oh, we have this resource with Orderly Meds, and I checked it out. And I was like, oh, this is like legit, and this is a safe
Hmm.
compounding, an FDA certified compounding pharmacy. Like that's what you look for when you're looking for compounding. There are sketchy compounders, from overseas and all that. This is not the
Hmm.
same thing, right, at all. And so I was like, okay, this matters a lot because I'm not going to recommend stuff that is, sketchy. So, as kind of diving into it more, I was like, wow, this is arguably better for a lot of my clients because not only can they take their time at the dosing because
Hmm.
it's not quite the pen, a lot of them were stuck with the pens and then their doctors are
Hmm.
like, well, you have to do one. And they're like, well,
Right.
all that kind of stuff, that world. And so Orderly Meds has been a game changer for them. And so it is one of those things where I really hope that, things will be able to stay available because that I'm sure that this is a whole with the changes recently. So let's talk about that a little bit since we're on this topic. What is going on in the background that a lot of people don't really know about?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're following this or on these medications, you see whether it's on Facebook or social or wherever you're getting that news source that the FDA has removed the medication from the shortage list. I think we can hem and haw on whether or not it's actually fully available, or you go to your pharmacy right now, they'll probably tell you they don't have half of the meds that get requested and they can fill the other half in 3 or 5 days. But that's neither here nor there. I think as I look out to the future of what's going to happen here, and it's what Orderly Meds is leaning into heavily, is, the reason that compounding exists, and there's two different classifications. There's a B that is really only exists to create exact copies of a patented medication and only when that medication is on the shortage list. So all of the 503Bs produced meds for the last several years, kind of up until this March 19th deadline around tirzepatide and the May 22nd deadline around semaglutide. And that medication is kind of on the shelf now for a lot of telemedicine vendors. We've all got kind of our inventory that we're working through, and it's got a longer BUD or expiration date on it. So we've got 4 or 5 months of inventory on the shelf that we're going to continue to leverage. At the same time, and this is news that I think you're starting to see come out of some of the other telemedicine organizations, is the 503A category, which is a different type of compounding pharmacy, is allowed to make modifications to the core drug as long as it is medically necessary under the prescription of the doctor. So that could be, as you were just implying, a modification in the dose, because going from 2.5 to 5 is going to create a problem with nausea or a gastro problem. So you're going to go up in a smaller increment. So that would be a reason that you could use a 503. I think as you look across the configurations of products that are coming out, people are putting in B12, B6 for energy and nausea. They're putting in glycine for muscle. They're doing things around immunization, right? Like, there's a lot of other elements that when you look at someone's profile from a health perspective, there are other things that, if you're going to give yourself an injection, add these additional items to it and overall have a healthier outcome.
Yeah.
So for Orderly, we are partnering with and looking to potentially acquire a pharmacy that is going to kind of do this at a much grander scale than has been considered in the past.
Awesome.
So if you go to the 503A pharmacies that are still producing today, because we're past the tirzepatide shortage, they've all taken the medication and they've added one additive. So maybe they're doing a tirzepatide with B6. They're doing a tirzepatide with L-carnitine. They're doing a tirzepatide with glycine. The model that we are building out is tirzepatide and then multiple additives that support muscle, or multiple additives that support heart health, or multiple additives that support gastro and kind of resolution of nausea problems. So, when we look at that landscape, the doctor isn't going to say, hey, you're using this one pharmacy, so every prescription we write makes it medically necessary for you to have B6, and instead give the doctors optionality. And at launch, it'll start with 3 different configurations of the medication. Within 6 months, we'll have 20 different combinations that the doctor can pick from based on your blood work, the way you answer your health screening questions, the information that we can pull off of your health tech devices, your Apple Watch, your digital scale that you might step on, your Aura Ring, whatever that collection of data sources are going to feed into our model so that we can say, okay, here are the right additives for this individual patient. I'm sure that will get challenged, and that there will be conversations had between us and the patent holders. But we're optimistic that this is the right approach to provide a more precision medication for the individuals and allow us to continue keeping the access to these meds, versus you just got to hope that the patent holders are able to produce enough at a pharmacy level.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a clever way to kind of navigate those waters, but it is one
Right.
of those ways that hopefully it gives hope, honestly, and that is really cool. I was curious to hear how you guys were going to approach this, and so that's awesome. That's totally not what I expected, so
Yeah.
that's great.
As I look across when we talk to different, either legal counsel, other people in the space, like, this seems to be a pretty unique approach. Everybody else is kind of doing the one additive approach, and we're
Yeah.
thinking 3+ for every product version that we bring to market. And I don't think that this was something that was possible prior to, kind of the mass adoption of telemedicine over COVID.
Yeah.
I think this is absolutely, from a technology perspective, a big data. How do I collect that amount of data on a consumer and process it and figure out which set of additives are going to be a fit? So it's just right timing to try and execute a strategy like this.
Totally, and it kind of blends a little bit of both of your background. Yeah, no, it's a kind of a unique take on that. And so when it comes to the B503A, so is 503 You were saying 503B is like where you're currently operating out of.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so essentially then these kind of blended versions with the 5A, that would be the identical like terzepatide and semaglutide, like patented, well, maybe not the patented version. Well, I guess it would be, yeah.
It
How
is
does
it
that
is
go?
still the same active pharmaceutical ingredient.
Yeah.
So semaglutide or tirzepatide are the core active pharmaceutical ingredient,
Hmm.
and then the personalization of that medication is some number of supplements, other medications, right? So
Hmm.
there's options that have Somorelin integrated into it or NAD, right? So there are other and I think we'll get more and more sophisticated here as we go through time and testing, but the idea that you could get this with, say, Linzapril, right? So now you've got kind of your heart health and your weight loss in one,
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that would be really unique too for people because I think, kind of going back to the conversation about when you were initially looking for other options versus just the FDA approved prescription label.
Hmm.
Ozempic, Wegovy, for all of our listeners. There's a lot of different names, and I know a lot of general population usually refers to as like, oh, well, I'm on Monjaro and this. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, terzepatide,
Right.
and it's kind of like getting those down. It's almost like Ziploc. But when you were looking into the compounding, back in the couple years ago when I was first, I always heard the jargon was compounding's
Hmm.
dangerous, blah, blah, blah. Like you were saying, it depends on the pharmacy and then like using an accredited one or certified. But can you kind of explain to people a little bit about how compounding can potentially be advantageous over the generic brands, or not generic, sorry, the
Yeah.
labeled
The, the,
brands?
the,
What's the
it's
term for that?
in the beginning, there was only compounding, right? Like your
Yeah.
local pharmacist was where you got medication, right? And they
Hmm.
created it out of a variety of, active pharmaceuticals. And then kind of quote, big pharma came in and now owns the rights to certain medications and, do a tremendous amount of work in the research and development of those drugs, obviously. And then there are different scales of compounding, right? So you could be a 503A facility and you're just a retail pharmacy, right? So the corner pharmacy is a 503A pharmacy. They just don't have the ability to do any compounding. They
Yeah.
hand you your drugs when you come in with a prescription. 503A sterile facility is different than a non-sterile facility, right? So non-sterile would be pills and creams and things that you aren't injecting into your body. To do an injection,
Mm,
you got to have a sterile license. So there's a lot of different licensing. I think to make it extremely clear, like the medication that is produced at a pharmacy is not FDA approved,
yeah.
right? The facilities are FDA approved or certified by the state board of pharmacy, depending upon like the level of rigor that pharmacy's gone through. But the medication itself is not reviewed. It goes through third party testing to say that this has this active ingredient in this quantity. And we see this a lot, right? A patient reaches out and says, this isn't working. I don't feel great about it. I feel like I've got water in my vial. You can pull the batch number off of those vials. You can send it to the pharmacy and they'll send back the certificate of analysis that is done by a third party testing group that'll say the amount of tirzepatide in this vial is between 0.98 and 1.01, right? And
Hmm.
that's like basically 100%.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to kind of validate the medication that you're getting, right? If you reach out to a pharmacy and they say we don't have a certificate of analysis on our medication, that's
Yeah.
probably a warning sign to look out for.
Red flag.
So the other thing, and I don't come from a medical background, so I've had a lot of learnings in the last, 14, 15 months. And the one that has surprised me the most is even that the governing bodies of the State Board of Pharmacy and the FDA oversee these compound pharmacies, each inspector has their own little rule book, right? And it
Mm,
and it very much turns into, well, I'm walking around the pharmacy, I have to have something to put in my report. I can't say it's perfect. So there's always something that gets found, right? You can look up every single pharmacy that is shipping these medications, every single one, and they have some event in the last 12 months, whether it's there was a bug in the room over in the corner, or there was something on a wall, or there was a ceiling tile that had water damage. Like, so I look at it's almost like a placebo effect, right? If you watched
yeah.
Reddit or any of these channels long enough, you go, well, this is the good pharmacy this month, and then they're the bad pharmacy, and a new pharmacy is
Yes.
the good pharmacy. And I mean, even in our own community, you can step into conversations that are these are the strongest meds I've ever gotten. And I get nothing out of these meds, and I want to go back to the other pharmacy I was with. And it's
Hmm.
very much like we don't realize how much is going on in our body, our stresses, what we're eating, what we're doing. You know,
Yeah.
I I'd love to say there's a massive difference between any of these pharmacies. It's all the same.
Yeah.
That's the secret, right? I'm not naming any names, but regardless of which pharmacy you get it from, their certificate of analysis is within, a percentage point of the exact same medication across all
Totally.
of
Yeah, I've noticed that as
them.
well. Yeah, I've had a couple of people use other compounding and usually I can get them just swap into orderly just because
Yeah.
the like you said the customer service is so much better as well, which is such a big deal, especially in
Yeah.
a medical world.
Thank you.
Especially like it's very weight loss and anything to do with weight, regardless of if that's the main goal, is really
Hmm.
emotional, especially for a lot
Hmm.
of women, you know. So I think
Yep.
that taking the like really dry clinical side out of it is appealing, and you guys do a great job with the marketing as well as being like we're a warm place to do this.
Well, and we have this conversation all the time, right? Like people reach out and they're freaking out a little bit, right? They've
Mhm,
just put their credit card in for a very large purchase to an online company that they haven't worked with before, and then they have a 24-hour period before they hear back from the doctor,
mhm.
right? And it's like, remember, show some empathy. Like they've just made a huge life decision.
Yes.
And now that they've made the decision, they want it instantly, right? They don't want to wait 24 hours for the doctor and 2 days for the shipping. They want it the moment they, instant gratification, right?
Yes.
So we have to have that empathy conversation all the time internally to say, just put yourself in their shoes, right? Like this is a
Yeah.
stressful moment. And I love what we do, and we still screw it up, right? People get lost in a technology system, or a text message or an email gets missed and ends
Mhm.
up in the wrong place. And all we can do is, say we're sorry, we'll try again harder, and put a new process in place that catches that so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, we're really only in the first 5 years of this widespread telemedicine.
Right.
Like, it's opened so many doors, but at the same time, there's
Hmm.
so many kinks to work out, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Internet took how many years? Like, it's only been around for,
Right.
like, what, 30? Yeah, but so yeah, so that's awesome about the compounding zone, and thank you for clarifying that because I think that's one of the biggest conversations that is had is most practitioners will be like, yeah, don't get compounding, it's
Right.
blah blah blah,
Yep. Well,
but
and to
I
be
think
clear, like there's massive amount of money being spent by the other side to say compounding is the worst thing that's ever happened,
yeah, oh
right?
yeah,
Because it is,
yeah, yeah, and
competing with them directly.
yeah, exactly. And it's hard to have that conversation too, because you're like, I'm not just trying to be like a big pharma person, but at the same time, it is, that
Yeah.
is it is a real thing. There's lobbyists on, all that side. But I will say it is pretty interesting how more affordable compounding is as well compared to what people will pay out of pocket
Hmm.
through like their insurance. Because most insurance, like I've had so many clients, I have one currently trying to work with Eli Lilly and even trying to buy it out of pocket because they have the funds for that. But it's like,
Hmm.
$1,300 a month,
Yeah.
and
Right.
that's just, it's crazy. So I've been trying to like sneak in like, well, you should explore compounded, but
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll kind of see where that goes for the general population, but I do love that, this is available for everybody. So let's I want to circle back to the way that, how these GLP-1 medications, it was game changer for you. So can you talk a
Hmm.
little bit about not only that experience for you, like the process of starting GLP-1 and some of the things you
Yeah.
navigated, and then some success stories from patients or
Yeah,
clients rather.
absolutely. I'm gonna add one thing to the into that last
Yeah.
conversation. And I
Yeah.
think as consumers, we should be absolutely floored that you can buy these drugs for $50 in India,
Yeah.
right? Like Eli's all over the news,
Hmm.
end of last week for launching their product in India at $50 a month.
Just goes to show, like it
Come
really goes to
on,
show.
like,
Yeah.
and we can't even manufacture it for that price because we're at a much smaller scale than an organization like that.
Yeah.
But the difference between 50 there and 1,300 here is, come on,
It's wild.
take
Yeah.
quit abusing America
Oh
for
yeah. I
profit.
know.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
so now your next question, like my experience, again, I am fairly risk adverse, right? Like I will lean into risky situations. So getting medication online and kind of figuring that out wasn't super scary to me. That is not the majority of our population
No.
from a
No.
patient perspective, right? A little bit older, a little bit less tech savvy. The number of conversations that I have personally had with potential patients around, I'm going to do this whole doctor conversation over text message is almost like disbelief, right? They're like, that
Yeah.
doesn't seem legitimate. Like, help me
Hmm.
understand more of that. So we're trying to take that scariness out of it, right? Like that
Hmm.
was the big, and I think again, like I was very lucky in the fact that I had, a therapist that I was working with from a mental health side. I could, go and do research around nutrition and fitness. And I just don't think that that is a generally accessible thing for a lot of individuals, right? So bringing that to bear was part of that customer experience that we wanted to deliver on, because I know that that had a huge impact in the results that I was able to accomplish, right? It's not, I'd love to say it's the easy button. And for some folks, you take a shot and then they're just like, yeah, I don't eat for the week, right? But for a lot of folks, it's
Yeah.
still, I need to count calories. I need to get up and be active. I need to make sure I'm taking in enough water. So having the support systems in place to do that. I mean, my personal, I think, and I'm not as rigorous with my weekly dosing anymore. So I'm kind of a little bit more on like the maintenance mode
Yeah.
personally. But I'm down 65 pounds, and it kind of just, and it was a year-long journey. There was a number of plateaus in there where I was like, man, I'm over here on this side selling this stuff and I've been plateaued for 2 months. That sucks.
Mhm.
Like if anybody's
Yeah.
been able to figure it out, I should, right?
Yeah.
So that happens and you just kind of muscle through it, right? Like you pay a little bit more attention to your calories at that point in time. You up your water intake, right? There's a lot of things that I think are important there. We'll tell you what, I don't have any specific patient stories that I will sell, but the most gratifying moment is, every day there are multiple posts in our community where people are doing before and after photos and showing
Hmm.
off kind of how amazing they feel and the change that this has created for them. And I mean, it's, some of it is, I'm looking to lose 20 pounds, but some of it is I've lost 150 pounds in, 16 months. And I've gone from I can't do anything with my family and my kids to the healthiest I've ever been in my entire life. Right. And that's
Yeah.
just phenomenal. Right. Like what an outcome. And I think, when we originally sat down and reached out, so one of the first things we did as a business was I made a post on my personal Facebook page and I said, I need to know who's on this stuff. And I
Hmm.
got, probably 15 friends and family members that reached out, and I did conversations with all of them. And the resounding theme, and maybe this is because I'm older, was they were in the second half of life, right?
Hmm.
And it was, how do I keep up with my kids, right? I've
Yes.
lost
Yeah.
that ability. I'm in a position where I'm thinking about my retirement and I'm not going to be able to enjoy it because I'm so unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
Or because I'm not going to be as active as I was hoping to be. I want to keep up with my grandkids. So I think as an organization, we're really focused on like, how do you get the best second half of your life?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the theme. That's what we're all aiming for. That's the audience. And, those stories are just, resonating with that idea. They are getting, I'll tell one personal story. It was a friend of mine, helped me get my first job out of college, was the first customer to sign up for Orderly. And when I did that one-on-one conversation with him, prior to being an Orderly customer, he said, here's my story. My fiance and I went to Hawaii and booked a helicopter ride to go do like our honeymoon
Oh.
tour. And I had to pay for 2 seats.
Yeah.
And that was my moment that I was like, I have to do something about this. And so he's been a customer for a year now, and it was probably about 2 months ago they went back to Hawaii, and he made it a point to say like, I only had to buy one seat this time.
Yeah.
That's amazing, right? Like goosebumps kind of level impact.
Yeah.
And I will say this to our team on a regular basis, like I really enjoy consulting work. We got to build some cool projects. I will never, and I believe this for our whole team, we will never get to have the impact on humanity and people's lives like we can at Orderly Meds right now, right?
Yeah.
Like these are real life-changing results for a huge number of people, more than I ever
Yeah.
thought I would have a personal impact on.
No, that's awesome. I think that's funny that you talk about that because my husband and I, for our honeymoon in Kauai, we did the helicopter thing, and we had to shift because the couple that we were with, the guy was like, "So the weights that you guys, because they weigh you when you get there, it's honestly
Yeah.
kind of shocking. Like
Yeah. No, it's
it could be
very
a lot."
scientific.
And they don't, I feel like they should give maybe a trigger warning for some people. 'Cause they're like, you don't want to lie when you tell them how much you weigh, but they're like, you
Right.
guys are about 20 pounds more, so we need to move around. So I wasn't able to
Hmm.
actually sit with my husband. And I could tell that the wife had kind of like a moment that might have been one of those kind of aha moments
Hmm.
of like, ooh. So, I can totally see how that would, be something that would motivate because
Right.
changes that. But I would say mostly for a lot of my clients that have had these game changing moments is because they've been struggling with metabolic dysfunction. And I think the GLP-1 receptor agonist medications are phenomenal. Like I've completely changed my mindset. Like I have to actually
Hmm.
re-record my first ever episode on GLP-1s because I'm like, my perspective, I don't think I'm going to re-record. I'm going to do like a follow-up because
Hmm.
my perspective's completely changed because I've seen it for not just weight loss or metabolic dysfunction, but fertility,
Right.
and so many things, especially for PCOS because of the insulin management.
Hmm.
It's been an insane medication, and so having access to that more affordably, I think so I think it is. I could see how you guys have changed lives with having this accessible.
I did not see that first episode about GLP-1. So what was the
Oh.
soundbite that you think is substantially different?
I would say initially, because there were so many like little like the black label stuff was coming out, and
Hmm.
all these different, and then just the conversations people were having in the background of like, oh, you're gonna lose all your muscle, all this different stuff.
Hmm.
And, the muscle thing is the biggest one, and it's so funny because you never hear general population talking about how much you need to make muscle. However, all of a sudden they started to be like, well, you're gonna lose muscle. It's like, well,
Hmm.
maybe it didn't even have that much in the first place, not in
Right.
a bad way,
Right. Right.
but more of like it's just funny the things people hold on to. But initially, as a past history of being a personal trainer, I was
Hmm.
always like a little bit concerned because, a lot of these is like we're spending so much time putting on muscle, and a lot of my female clients, like they take a long time to put on muscle,
Hmm.
especially if they have metabolic dysfunction. So when we actually like, I like data, I get kind of nerdy about that. So my clients typically will get body scans, like DEXA scans,
Hmm.
and we run their blood work kind of, semi-annually just to make sure. And the way that it's even improved, like lipids on like
Hmm.
their lipid panels have just gotten perfect practically,
Right.
almost like all it's crazy. And I haven't seen any significant muscle loss compared to like metformin
Hmm.
is a thing that has actually taken a lot of muscle rapidly from several clients whose practitioners
Right.
put it on them against kind of I was like, I don't
Hmm.
know. But metformin's one of those drugs that they're always like, try metformin before you do Ozempic or
Okay.
whatever. And yeah, so yeah, I would say that I would kind of go back and change a little bit of like my like, I don't know about this because of
Yeah.
this.
Wait,
Yeah.
and I don't want to, I mean, I think this is absolutely one of those things you got to do your own research, right? To your point,
Yes.
this isn't medical advice, but you know, you can go buy stuff that is research grade and put that into your body. And I mean, that's not a thing that I would do, but you can go like that website is like, you have to check like 9 times. I promise I will not inject this into a human, but they will sell you some weird stuff online and it's much cheaper than getting it prescribed by a doctor. But like, the risk associated with taking on figuring out how to schedule that dosing and how much needs to be added to rehydrate the powders. I mean, again, like anecdotally, I think that there's probably one post a week that makes it into our community where somebody's like, this person told me they had a bunch of Wegovy pens and I bought them super cheap and I got empty boxes, right? And it's
Oh,
just like we are so excited about getting access to these meds at a
yeah.
better price
Yeah.
that I think a lot of people will, it's like the adage, if it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true,
Yeah.
right? So that would be my risk warning, right? Like do your research, make sure you understand who you're working
Mm-hmm.
with, where it's coming from. Those are important questions,
Yeah.
especially for something you're going to inject into your body.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like if you search the lab that is on the bottle and you can't find any third-party testing or any
Hmm.
any resources to even contact somebody from the lab, like I would for sure be like no. And I
Yeah.
think too, like even though some people may bulk at like 200, like well, like Orderly is around 99 with the simple start, and then it
Hmm.
goes up 199 to 299 depending on if it's tirzepatide or not. That is wildly more affordable than even some copays that some
Hmm.
of my clients are
Right.
paying for. And I've also found too a lot of my clients that have shifted from Wegovy or Manjaro to the compounded version, they were getting allergic reactions to the fillers that are in
Hmm.
the Wegovy or Ozempic
Right.
and all of that. Have you guys seen that or have you heard from in the community like some people switching from the brand name to compounded and having like a better reaction or anything?
I think this kind of plays into all of us are so unique, right? If
Oh
I
yeah.
look at
Yes.
adverse reactions that we have seen, more often than not, the major ones happen in a switch from I was on some level of semaglutide and I
Mhm.
switched over some higher level of tirzepatide and I end up with a rash, or,
Yeah.
I get the extra, itchy skin spot wherever your injection spot is. Other than a short period of time last April when Zepbound first went on the shortage, I think the majority of our patients are not switching in from a branded medication.
Mm,
So
okay.
we have not seen a lot of what you've just described. We've seen more of it as you're switching between the meds, right?
Hmm.
And I think it is the higher levels of tears coming off of semaglutide. And while they have that rash, they also will categorically say that the symptoms are significantly less
Yeah.
on the tirzepatide side than on the
Yeah.
semaglutide side.
Yeah, no, that's actually an interesting point of what I've noticed as well. Because early on, there was a lot more people saying tirzepatide was potentially more reactive for
Hmm.
more females, and then now it's completely flip-flopped,
Right.
which I guess kind of goes back to what you were talking about of like the way that people are like, this compounding is what's up, and then no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's so many like in the general population world, like a lot of the conversation is like, okay, Ozempic's what's up, and then it's like, okay, now it's Manjaro, or okay, now it's Zepbound, and then it's just like,
Yeah.
guys, they're like
They're
all
all basically the same with a margin of error.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what can you get the most affordable that works well for you? But
Right.
yeah, so I think that that is more of where I do tend to like, if they want to go for it, tirzepatide seems to be more effective,
Hmm.
especially through research. It is more expensive, but it is like a double receptor agonist, or maybe it's
Right.
triple, double.
It's double.
But
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
they're working on triples and stuff right now. Which what do you guys actually on that zone for my peptide heads like ratretide and all of that?
Hmm.
What have you guys been able to explore that, or is that still because they're not like
Yeah. I mean,
patented?
from the other one that I love is like, I call it semaglutide. I've heard semaglutide,
Yes, I heard
tirzepatide.
semaglutide all the
The
time.
other one I call Redditutide. You call it
Yeah.
Redditide. Like, okay, we're all gonna release like our vocals on how we want to call these things. But those are available. You could go find those on a research site right now, but they're still not even FDA approved, right? There's not a dosing schedule that I have
Yeah.
seen that anybody has said you need 3 milligrams of this to start and scale up. So that is very much a choose your own adventure kind of have fun. The data, I mean, I think at the end of the day, they're going to say this is a triple antagonist and it's this much percentage more after 2 more years of study. And the folks that are starting on it now, like, again, it's just a risk because, there are different grades of API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, right? There's
Mhm.
research grade, there's animal grade, there's human grade. The
Yeah.
stuff that you can buy online right now is research grade, right? It is
Yes.
the bottom of the pyramid of
Yeah.
processing and approval. It's FDA approved research grade, but it's still research grade.
Yeah.
Um, I will admit a little bit of ignorance here. Like, there are so many peptides out there, and so many of them are kind of on the don't touch list right
Yes.
now from like a medical perspective. But I think is I presume that we will continue to see that opening up, and there will be more research on all of those things and more kind of proof points associated with them. And yeah, I mean, I assume there's a couple of incredible outliers that are going to have a great impact on us, and one of them is going to turn us into zombies. And we just got to figure out which one it is.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. And I think that is a good distinction to make because a lot of people have told me like, oh, I looked online and I found tesamorelin, sermorelin, and those for
Right.
everyone listening, if you don't know what those are like growth hormone receptor agonists. And
Hmm.
so essentially it's like if it says like approved for research grade, like yes, you can buy it, but it always has that little disclaimer like research only. So that's
Right.
great to make the distinction that it's below animal testing.
Right.
Not even like to human yet. No, totally. That's so funny. I didn't actually even realize that. I was always thought it was like research to human. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, oops, not even on rats yet.
Right.
So,
Be
but
careful.
yes, yeah, for sure. Yes, be very careful. That is the biggest thing. Probably don't is probably what I would say. Not medical advice, but probably don't. So one of the other things that I kind of wanted to share today before we kind of wrap our chat up is what are some things that, you would say with how much you know now and how much experience you've had with these medications are non-negotiables? Like if somebody wants to go on it and have the best success possible, what are like the things that they need to do with their lifestyle to have the best results, maintain those results, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, my most important one, because I think it leads to all of the real bad events that you see are related to water intake.
Yeah.
When you're eating less, you start drinking less water because you usually only had that at a meal or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
All of the bad, get more water, right? Like, that's the
Yes.
number one. Oh, and then I can go down the list of, marketing. So you go get your protein, prioritize protein,
Yes.
make sure that you get up and walk. But, at the end of the day, like, give yourself grace. Like, you're going to stall out. Your
Hmm.
body's going to react different than the next person, right? Like, I love when somebody makes a post and they're like, I've lost 15 pounds in a month. And I'm like, all your hair is going with it, right? Like,
Yes.
slow
Oh, yeah.
down, like,
Yes.
slow down. You are not getting
Yes.
enough nutrients to maintain.
Such a good point
Um,
to make.
right. And then the next person comes along and they're like, well, I've only lost 5 pounds in this month and I'm so disappointed. And it's like, have the right expectation. And
Yes.
I think that's on us to set those expectations. I think that is on the medical providers to be setting those expectations. But a pound and a half a week is like an incredible loss rate and
Oh,
is in the
yeah.
safe range, right? Like,
Yeah. Yes.
it's not about 15 pounds in a 4 week period. That's just dangerous.
Hmm.
I think the other one, and again, this is different than the pens. The auto injectors are great. It's an exact dose. You can't screw it up. I think across the board, and I've gotten on calls, like video calls with patients to walk them through how to do their dosing because it is confusing the first time, right? You're
Oh
like,
yeah, so confusing.
you sent me 2.5 milligrams per ml, and I got a 3 ml vial, and I'm trying to do this math, and then you give me, I need X number of units, and people are just like,
Yes.
it's like, I mean, I've said this a lot. I think the medical community does all that to like confuse the rest of us on what we're actually
Yeah.
putting in.
Yeah.
So just pay attention to your dosing. If you have
Mhm.
questions, don't wing it. Don't fill the whole needle up with the entire vial and inject yourself. You're gonna have a really bad week,
Oh yeah.
right? Like reach out, get the help you need, get the units correct. That's
Yes.
if I had a drumbeat above and beyond water, it is like if you aren't confident, ask for help. Don't
Yes.
just randomly dose yourself.
Yes, especially with medications and like
Yeah,
ones that are powerful. Yeah.
right. And again, it's not going to kill you, but you're not going to feel great if over inject what you're supposed to be taking.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I have an idea for you. I'll tell you later after this episode. But no, yeah. So no, I think that those are really important things for people to consider, and especially the movement component. I think a lot of people underestimate.
Mhm.
Especially if you stall out, like increase your
Yep.
walking. You don't even have to go weightlift. Weightlifting is great. You know,
Yes.
make and
On
keep
the
your
muscle
muscle.
front, I think when I think about it from a fitness perspective, this isn't you went from doing nothing to you need to be doing squats and box jumps, and
Yeah.
you just need to get up and go for a 20-minute walk every day.
Yeah.
I like start there, get your knees back into lubricating and
Yeah.
moving and feeling good,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
And then yeah, you'll escalate naturally into more complex movements and weightlifting and the other things, that fits
Totally.
into your schedule, right? Yeah.
Yeah, especially for maintenance and keeping it off. I think the clients that have gone off of it and not and like gained everything back, or their family members, usually it's not usually the clients because I'm usually like, "Meh," but
Yeah.
they usually it's because they did never incorporated a movement component and made habits. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, if they can establish habits throughout it. And I do think maintenance dosing is a successful thing, especially if you're prone to metabolic dysfunction, like if
Yeah.
your lifestyle, your genetics, there's a lot of components to it that I think that's great to titrate up, titrate back, and maintain, better
Can we
than
spend one more minute there? Because I
yeah,
do think the habit forming element is super important, right?
yeah,
So another regular question, like, so when I stop taking these meds, I'm going to gain all the weight back.
yes,
And my
common.
response is yes, just like every other wellness related activity.
Mhm.
If you stop eating well, you're going to start to put the weight back on. If you stop working out, you're going to start to put the weight back on, right? This isn't a unique problem. It
No.
is you didn't change the underlying cause
Yes.
or work on element, give yourself tools to stop the binge eating. Do that through mental health. Give yourself tools to get up and go be active through the fitness, right? Make a little bit healthier choices from a food perspective. But yeah, I always loved when I stop the meds, I'm just going to gain all the weight back. Yep, you are. If you
Yeah.
didn't change anything else about your life, you absolutely are.
Yeah, it's not a magic wand. It's a
Right.
extremely powerful therapeutic assistant
Exactly.
to all the rest. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that has been a good thing for clients of mine that have established those habits, but then the metabolic dysfunction's making it impossible for any more weight
Hmm.
to move. I see this the
Yep.
most with female clients.
Yep.
Guys can stop putting creamer in their coffee and they lose like 30 pounds. Not all,
Yeah.
but I've definitely noticed a pattern between when I train their husbands or.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so yeah, and I think the hydration thing can't highlight that enough because I've had a few friends who even didn't know that, and I wish some practitioners because she went through her conventional medicine GP
Hmm.
was on Wegovy and went to the ER twice for electrolyte imbalances from dehydration,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Whew, we really need to make sure you know that you need to hydrate all day." Like
Right.
also too, when you're losing fat and accessing it, you're flushing a lot of water as well because that's what's
Right.
necessary for moving fat out. So I'm glad that you highlighted all of those things. So I think that's important for everybody to make sure. So that the takeaway from today: stay hydrated if you're going to use these meds.
Right.
But all right, so as we close out this conversation today, Chris, I would love to ask my usual question: in what way, if any, do you find yourself a wellness rebel? Which I think that's a little of your backstory.
Yeah. I mean, I think we hit on a lot of things, but what I would close with, I find it irresponsible to, and we make money off of this, right? So I've obviously got a very specific point of view, but um, you know, compounding has given so many people access to these medications at a price point that they can afford, and without it, It's not like they're going to go to the grocery store and buy a $1,300 a month. That's a mortgage payment.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's an alternative here. And I love the response. It's like, just get to the gym more. Well, like this is actually working for people. Let's allow that to continue working. If I play out the future where I would love to see Orderly go as a business, it is not to stay just in the weight loss GLP-1 category, but it is to go look at other medications that are outside of the accessible range for people that need it, right? Whether that
Yeah.
is $5,000 narcolepsy pills or $10 cancer shots, like what else is possible to be compounded and dramatically reduce the price point so that it becomes available to a much,
Yeah.
much broader audience? And I hope that the healthcare system continues to allow that and drive us in that direction because accessibility, I think, is more important than how much profit got made.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I do think that that is something I'd love to see from being on the other end and helping clients navigate things and insurance conversations that go in circles for hours and weeks and months, and
Yep.
it's the system's broken. So I think that
Right.
you're offering a lot of solutions that are moving towards hopefully the system being a little bit repaired if we
Yeah.
can, you know.
Well, and you said this earlier, right? This category of medication is only a handful of years and like general adoption. Telemedicine at this kind of scale is in its brand new infancy.
Yes.
The next 10 years is going to be really incredible from, I think, like the speed and access to medical information and, just results, right? Like we're going to know
Absolutely.
more and be able to process more information faster. And it's just going
Yeah.
to make us all better.
Totally. And since we have so many people with more longitudinal data as well, I'm sure some things will be improving in that zone and
Right.
some I think only good things to come. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? A lot of people
totally agree.
think it's scary, but all right, Chris, thank you so much for being with us today. And then do you have, I will actually put them all in the show notes as well. But of course, the main way that people can access your company is through orderlymeds.com.
That's it.
But any other things going on, any other projects or anything you want to close the episode with?
No, I hope you watch this space. I hope you pay attention to what we're going to do around personalized
Yeah,
medicine in
absolutely.
this category. I think we will be the industry leader in our approach to continue to provide access to this
Awesome.
category of drugs, and it's gonna
Yeah,
be
I
fun.
can't wait. I'm very excited about it.
Kaylee, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.